What's up, everyone? Switched on player, as always. Well, it has been a pretty not much on a eventful Wednesday, you know. Once again, middle of the week, and I was like, why not? I mean, I was a bit bored, and I was like, hey, why not do a stream for once? Oh man, that's just I know a small fact that Game Guy might not be joining the stream since he didn't sleep so much last night due to the fact that one of his sisters kept him awake, and apparently the house walls are a bit thin. So yeah, so Game Guy won't be able to join in the stream even if he wanted. He's too tired for that. So I respect for that, and I do understand for the fact that if you're too tired, you don't even like. It's like your brain doesn't want to work properly, and it's understanding considering how much. If anyone doesn't get much sleep, it's like the brain needs charge. Since the brain is never asleep, it's really in a constant active for every second of your life. That is yeah. But considering of how many of the, it's like the world record of the one being awake is 11 days. When you're thinking, whoa, who in the right mind is just wanted to be awake for almost 2 weeks? Well, apparently it was for research. I mean, the longest I have been awake is 33 hours. That's the longest. An experiment, student project. I mean, a high school student, a 17-year-old, he wanted to conduct this experiment just to see if what happened to the body and especially to the brain and the mind be not being lack of sleep. Personally, for me, well, if I'm not getting much any sleep for just a day or two, I feel like a walking zombie and increase headaches and such. But this 17-year-old who really wanted to be to perform this a high school project for a science fair for all things. And the fact is, even though under this is very dangerous, the experiment resulted in severe side effects like including paranoia, hallucinations, and cognitive impairment. In cognitive impairment, which underscore dangers of extreme sleep depression. Recovered, he later developed chronic insomnia. So why would anyone, even a bit of reasonable mind, even doing this? This was back in 1964, and he was just a high school student who wanted to do a science fiction, science fair. I mean, in a reasonable mind, anyone who's in high school do a science fair. But this student, he went to a whole new level of performance. He really went so far. So it's one of the most absolute, only the dangerous, but also, yeah, I mean, it's a little really strange, but considering how long he did, I mean, considering even after he did these experiments, after being sleeping, being awake for 11 hours, for 11 days, he slept 14 to 15 hours straight. And in his experiment, this was actually might actually be quite a value information. After all, the human brain is one of the major organs that in our body that we don't know much about. Sure, we know we have studied the human brain and us, and we know there's a certain section of the brain where, like the memory stored, the speech center, and what makes us. But there's parts of the brain that we don't understand. People may ask, will we ever be understanding the fully of our own brain? I mean, it's really likely that we will eventually, of course, but I mean, science and medical science and such always develop new techniques, new discoveries of the human mind. But some of the most the discovery that we hope that involves the human brain is Alzheimer's, dementia, because Alzheimer's, as we all know, is affecting your brain's memory. It's a little like even when you have Alzheimer's, there might actually be time when you can have a clear moment. You can remember everything as was before even when the Alzheimer's was again kicked back. Hopefully, it is one day that we may be able to understand more exactly what it actually triggered this, and hopefully, we may actually be develop some form uh, of medication that can slow down the development of Alzheimer's before it begins so rapidly. And it might actually be a good thing because, let's say, HIV, that is also a huge problem for many people around the world. Many people suffering from that disease, and still there are thousands, millions of people around the world that can't even have any form of treatment. Unfortunately, it's real. But yeah, it's I am not understand why this particular student, the high school student, really want to go so far to be awake for nearly 2 weeks just to be seeing what kind of side effect it would be if you really put yourself in this. Knowing this afterwards, he had such paranoia, hallucinate. He was hallucinating, and all of that. So, I mean, it's understanding that anyone who went through this, there's always some side effects. But even if he did risk himself by giving himself chronic insomnia afterwards. But that small detail of that experiment of his actually provided with some valuable information. I mean, you may be thinking, why did he even do that? Well, he was curious. Curiosity is one of the one thing that we do. The human being curious as a part of human. I mean, if we were never curious, all the things that we had discovered today, like say uh, the fire, writing language, or if we never even were so this curious, we wouldn't have discovered the new world and anything else that we made as a curious mind. Everything that we discovered, like, how does steam work? Could I actually make as some vehicle? Like, if we were never curious, such discoveries like, say, invention of cars, telephone, internet, and such on may never actually been invented. Think about it. If we never were curious, everything that we are the major discoveries, major inventions in modern history, or even human history itself, may never actually happen. Like, say, for example, like space travel. If we never been curious about space and such, we know, in fact, we know about, say, to moon, we had discovered some of the on planets in our system, but never much even brought more curious what else is out there. So what else would happen? Like, say, Even if we had made Star Wars movies, science fiction, all that, like Star Wars and Star Trek, if we had made those such as a shows and movies and such, but never even got the curious minded to think, could those things actually be happening in real life and out there in the universe, like somewhere? Well, think about it. If we never had been curious minded as a species itself, everything what we had learned, everything what we had discovered, invented over the course of centuries, millennia, may not actually have happened. And I mean, if we never invented or it was curious of how to communicate, of say writing, computers, anything, what level of development of technology would we still be then? Well, I mean, we probably even would even have been on the Stone Age level. We probably would still be nomads and hunters. But there's one curious thing about human history that I am really much puzzled. In fact, this is one major thing about human history that many scientists in the world literally have been puzzled. How is it even possible that happened? You may be thinking what I'm talking about. Well, in Turkey, in the early 1990s, a German scientist actually found something that was really something unpredictable. This particular event led to the discovery of a giant temple, Göbekli Tepe, or how do you pronounce it, in Turkey. Before them, much of human history, before, like say, before we became farmers and such, wasn't even recorded down. All the discoveries we have found about our earlier history was from discoveries and by digging around, like archaeological digs and such. But in Turkey, when Göbekli Tepe, okay, I can't even now pronounce the name, but this temple, when it was discovered, it really brought a whole new understanding of a new information. This temple predates the Great Pyramids, predates even all ancient civilizations altogether. The oldest known civilization that had writing were the Sumerians, about 5,000 years ago. But this temple was constructed thousands of years prior to that. And its exact age, 12,000 years old. You may be thinking, 12,000 years old, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, if we develop a society as a civilization around 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia with the Sumerians and ancient Egypt, so how is it even possible this temple was built 12,000 years ago during the Ice Age? That makes no sense because in Europe, when modern man's earliest ancestors lived, we didn't even have any form of civilization. We were nomads, traveling around, living side by side with the Neanderthals. So how is it even possible for this particular temple was constructed 12,000 years ago? Well, it's just one of the strangest though. Here's the thing about it. As the research of this temple has been continued and also been excavated still, new information has been found. This temple brings one mysterious thing. People lived in the area. You want to know something? Every time in our throughout history, we always had some big conflicts, fights, battles, fights against each other. But people who lived in or in the area of this temple never had it because there was no signs of any battles because one day this temple complex was just abandoned. But there were no signs of any fights or any internal or external conflict. It was just like the people who lived there left. But these people who built this temple, they were actually not even known. They were still nomads. And that is the strangest. It's just strange because this temple has so many erect stones like pillars or something. And the fact is, we don't even know exactly what kind of temple that this were and what they even lived, what was even doing there. These were people who were still nomads. Long before we even started developing farm techniques and such, it's still puzzling. But there are in fact some animals carvings in these particular temples, like wild boars, jaguars, scorpions, and any other native species. That is a very strange. No one knows exactly what this temple even made for, or even how it was even constructed. Because this was way long before the Egyptian pyramids was even built. That was even long before even most of the civilization existed. I'm surprised of that this temple was established. But I'm very curious though. But even more of that, I know that many are, well, have been considering what else is about to talk about. Well, um, there is, as many knows, that Disney did announce about a year ago, I think, about some upcoming movies. And I'm not talking about the live actions, of course, except for I'm curious about the first live action of the Moana. It's going to be like. I mean, I'm curious about that. But regardless, as me all people know, when this particular movie came out, um, with this very much iconic song, Let It Go, came out. When I'm talking about Frozen. Frozen 2 came out only about a few years ago, and it is even announced there's going to be a third movie sometime in 2027 about the Frozen. But here's the thing. What is it going to happen in the movie? Like the movie is released in 2027, which in 2 years. But what is going to happen in this new movie? As if not some of you haven't or watched the second, but Elsa stepped down as the queen, became the new fifth element in the forest where her mother was from, and that Anna became the new queen. And that I presume that Kristoff is either the king or the prince. I don't know. But what is going to happen in the first movie? Now we have the fact that Anna is the new queen. And as the first of the first movie, when we had Hans as the main villain, okay, what do we think that might actually happen in the third movie? Well, it's so far it's very much of rumors. I mean, there were even some rumors about that Elsa was going to have her first girlfriend in the second movie. There was rumors about it, but that didn't happen. Seriously. But if that did happen, I would have been wow. That would have been great. That would have been amazing. But it didn't happen. But in the third Frozen movie, what might actually happen? Well, this I think might is one of the possible scenarios is that it might actually be taking place at least a few years after the second movie. Anna's been ruling with peaceful. Um, she and Kristoff is finally married at some point there, even have a family of their own, or perhaps they're expecting their first child. I was like, okay, at least the next heir to the throne. That meant like, okay, Anna and Kristoff is finally getting married or being married for a while, expecting a first child, and but then what if it's that there is some dark forces, or maybe an ancient force that is threatening the peace in Arendelle? That might actually happen, considering how many other movies out there with some bad guy or an ancient force has been trapped away for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, and who knows? I mean, I can imagine there's gonna be some form of, well, an ancient force or maybe an evil sorceress, maybe a wizard or witch that may actually want to take over Arendelle. Something. Some people are thinking, but Anna's and Elsa's parents, could they somehow return? Well, that is far fetched. As the first movie, it was they had when lost in the shipwreck, but as if for the discovery in the second movie that the ship they traveled in wasn't synced, but ended up in North where they found it. But the fact is, the ship was relatively intact, like in one piece. But no signs of anyone on board. If Anna and Elsa's parents had not died on board the ship, since the ship was literally found far from the ocean, or at least from some distance from the ocean. But even if they managed to see this, that there was this wave, an ocean wave, flushing over both of their parents, in result like as representing that they were washed overboard of the ship during the storm. But does it even mean that they could actually be dead? Who knows? Maybe that their parents has survived somewhere in the ocean, drifted onto the breeze, and they could end up on a beach somewhere, lost their memory, and maybe who knows? I mean, it's so many possibilities. What's going to happen in Frozen 3? But that is not all of it. Disney officially announced around the same time when when Frozen 3 was announced, but Frozen 4. Yeah, you heard me right. It's going to be two more Frozen movies that is going to be happening. If I remember, Frozen 4 is set to be released in, let's see here. Um, let's see. Well, if I remember correctly, around 2029 or 2030. But exactly what's going to happen in the fourth movie, who knows these days? I mean, who knows by this point? But that is another thing. The fourth movie might not even happen either, or the third. It depends. I mean, even considering the first and the second movie was a great hit, okay, I mean, who knows? But let us say this. The one who is making the voice for, say, Elsa, if she would have passed away or perhaps retired from acting, would the truth, would Frozen 3 even still happening? I may have to say that it's like a 50-50. I mean, depending on if they find another voice actor that can make this sound almost as the original Elsa. But that in the same time actually is not a far-fetched for that, because I can use an example. As a MP, A New Generation, that first movie they actually made, had, let's say, Vanessa Hudgens as the voice actor for Sunny. But in Making Mark and Telltale series, it was not the same voice actor. Vanessa didn't make the voice acting for Sunny in those two series. So that's another example. But who knows? But I was surprised that the Frozen 3 is gonna even be made, since the second was released back in 2019. I actually went to the movies theater with my niece by then, saw it. It was Well, it was far more epic than I was expecting to be. I mean, find out that Elsa, the reason to why she had this magical power of ice power, wow. And as this Frozen was actually is based on an old book of a Danish author. Only there's a difference that Elsa in or the Ice Queen in the original story is the actually is evil. She is pretty much evil. Anna was not even in as original story as Anna at all. I haven't read this story myself, but seen most of it, like different versions, like the Little Mermaid, also written by the same author, and that if you compare to that one with Disney's version, it's huge difference, many huge difference. The princess in the author, the original story of the Mermaid, is not made Ariel at all. I mean, it's kind of a bit strange, but in the original story, she's actually just a prince. She has sisters. She falls in love with the prince, but the prince is actually never fall in love with her, but he marries another human princess. And in order for her to be, unfortunately, the mermaid princess had her heart broken. And she was told if she doesn't kill the prince before sunset of one particular day or sunrise of one particular day, she will dissolve her body from an actual body to sea foam. So she was given a dagger, and she literally crawls up to the ship where the prince was sleeping next to his wife. Me thinking, oh no, she actually killed him. No, she didn't. She loved him so much, she couldn't even have her heart to do it. So she just jumped back in the ocean and turned into sea foam as she swam down and died. But she was actually, at the end of the story, she turned into an angel. So that is at least one of the versions of the story. So many different, though, like, you were thinking, so many other movies that Disney actually made had based on from an actual book series, like say the Brother Grimm's. But some of those stories actually are so dark that they were not even considered not even wanted to be actual make at all. But yeah, so if you prefer to be watching some of the original stories and such, perhaps. Oh, this might be a little bit surprising. I actually discovered that a while back there was actually a new Disney series of The Little Mermaid of Ariel when she is much younger. They actually made a movie, a TV series based on The Little Mermaid back in the 90s, based on the I think it was set to make place before the first movie actually was made, like time before she actually met Prince Eric. But that is not the thing. The new version of this Little Mermaid is that the most shocking discovery is that is Ursula in this new version is that she is the youngest sister of King Triton, which means she is an aunt to Ariel and her sisters. So I was like, what? Ariel is related to Ursula, the same sea witch who stole her voice and almost killed her at the end of the first movie. I was like, what? There's no way. But then another question is that canon or non canon? Think about it. Think about it. That's not a question. Even I don't know. I mean, in this the new Ariel or La Mermaid where Ariel when she is much younger. I believe I had to say maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 7 years old or something, but she's very young, much younger when it, in the first, much younger than from the first movie. But having her be the niece of Ursula, I was like, what the heck? This is can't be real. But then you me thinking, did Ursula have any other relatives other besides her youngest sister Morgana? Well, I mean, in Disney's the Descendants, every single villain that had died actually came back to life. Ursula actually was trapped on this island outside in the bay with all the other villains like Jafar, Cruella, Maleficent, and all others. And Ursula did actually had a child, and I think yeah, she had a daughter in this the Descendants years. Like even Captain Hook had his own son, and Jafar had a son. Um, Maleficent had a daughter, Mel. Cruella has a son, Carlos. But if they wanted to make a new movie based on the same actors, it might not be much possible because Cameron, who played as Carlos, unfortunately passed away a few years ago, at age 20. So yeah, it's but they're still making some new ones of the Descendants, but not the same actors, but different ones. But there is another topic of movies, Zootopia 2. As many know that Zootopia 2 may actually is being released soon. And I was like, okay, I mean, there was in fact since the first movie was released in 2016, and shortly afterwards, there were talks about two more movies of Zootopia is going to be released, but not those movies never was made. So I was curious, what exactly is going to happen in Zootopia 2 this year when it's going to be released? Well, there is actually one major question that doesn't even make sense. As many have seen the first movie that Mr. Big, his daughter Frou Frou, actually was pregnant with his first grandchild or granddaughter was named Judith. But here's the thing though. In the second movie, that's literally been she actually made an appearance in the sequel. But that is the thing. You've been thinking, okay, she's the first appearance of Mr. Big's granddaughter, Judith, makes us first appearance in sequel. Okay, that's kind of cool. But the thing is, she looked to be at least had to be between 5 or 7 years old or something. But you've been thinking, okay, that been at least a few years between. But no, but no. It has only been 1 week. There has only been a week since between the first and the sequel of Zootopia. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, if Judith was supposed to be born sometimes by the end of the first movie, how is she even that old? How can she be much older in the sequel when it's only been a week? That makes no sense. Think about it, people. Unless that this Arctic shrew, the species that Mr. Big is, has a rapid aging process, which I doubt. But it's just, I don't know what happened there. Doesn't make sense. If she's also supposed to be born between the first and second movie, and then somehow a few years older in the sequel when she appears, well, Disney, you have a lot of explanation at that one. Oh man! But there is another thing. As in the second movie, now in the second trailer that they actually been released, that Judith and Nick are fugitives. Yeah, you heard me right. They are actually fugitives. Why? Well, since Judith is decided to help Gary, the Viper, the Snake, As even as Snake once said that Snake hasn't even actually been present in Zootopia in ages. So here's my major question. If Zootopia is a major city where every single animal species is supposed to be living in peace, including predators and prey animals like sheep with wolves side by side in harmony, but then why is there no snakes, lizards, any reptiles in Zootopia? If this city was supposed to represent a single coexistent harmony between every single known species, then why aren't the snakes or any reptiles even living there? Since the Zootopia city is divided in this district, like Tundra Town where Mr. Big is living in, or the Jungle Town or the Jungle District. So if there are any some form of reptile that should live in Zootopia, it should have been like in say in a normal town where Judy and Nick lives, or in a jungle district. But there are no single reptile at all in Zootopia. It makes no sense in my mind. It's like if Zootopia is supposed to be a major city where every single species is supposed to be living in peace, why aren't there any reptiles living there? I mean, if you've been thinking, okay, if there are reptiles not even allowed to be living in Zootopia, what about the other big predators like lions, tigers, jaguars, wolves? Shouldn't they even be allowed to be living in a big city? I mean, they are big animals like elephants, bisons, and some others, but no single reptile. It's a puzzling mind that it's just mind blowing, surprising that there are so many questions of why reptiles aren't even allowed or even living. Is it possible that the reptiles, there was some incident that which led all reptiles to either be banned from living in Zootopia or exiled? There's still so many questions about this, but won't be given any answer until the movie is being released. After then, there's only speculations, debating about exactly why there are no reptiles. As Nick once stated, though, that reptiles has not, or snakes hasn't been in Zootopia in ages. And as in the second trailer that they released about Zootopia 2, Nick and Judith are actually led to the secret hideout by Gary, where you can live seeing all kinds of reptiles. And in fact, Judith and Gary and Nick are even talking to a one lizard in the swamp. And this lizard, he runs on the water. It feels like it was just like running on the water in the water surface fast, which is literally based on a real species called, well, nicknamed Jesus lizard. Yeah, no surprise there. I mean, don't ask me why, but as it is. But that is not the thing. Gary said that he actually came back to Zootopia hoping that one day his family could return to Zootopia. So what exactly happened? What made all the reptiles banned or exiled from Zootopia in the first place? It's a very big question. Sure, we can be speculating, debating on exactly what to the point happened. When did it happen? Why did it happen? Are they even allowed to come back at any time at all? If this is the fact that all the reptiles aren't even permitted, not even as tourists, to live in Zootopia, why? You may ask. If the city is to represent a place where all kinds of animals can live in peace and harmony, then why aren't snakes, any reptiles even allowed to be in this utopia? If the city is supposed to be a place where all kinds of animals can live in peace. I mean, for example, in a major part of the city where Judith lives with Nick, there are lions, tigers, and many small animals like sheep, rats, and other kinds walking side by side with those big predator species. But then there are no lizards, no snakes, no. Okay, if that means that any reptile species like a lizard wasn't even allowed to be living there, what about the chameleons? I mean, okay, sure, but what exactly made them to not being allowed to be living there? Was it some sort of scandal, or was it some sort of huge incident that made every single reptile banned or been exiled from the Zootopia? Who knows? I mean, there are so many speculations and debating on this question. I mean, I may not even have the answer. I may not even have any possible answers to that. But think about it. It's so many questions about that. The why reptiles have been forced to be living away from Zootopia. And as many may wonder, also the question is, throughout the first movie and as a TV series that Zootopia was released some time ago, and with the second one coming up, there was another genesis of animal that we never saw. Primates, apes, monkeys. You may think, oh wait, what about Flash? He's a primate. No, he's a sloth. And sloths are not even primates. They aren't. They're the mammal, but still. Many thinking that primates don't even live in Zootopia. So maybe there aren't any maybe there aren't any primates in Zootopia or something. Some speculate that all primates are extinct, or they live in all their own kind, separate place in their own town. Or maybe there are primates, that monkeys or apes that lives in Zootopia, but they are in a secluded area in a jungle district only. But it's very difficult to say exact point in this. I mean, it's very difficult to say exactly why. I mean, the debating to why snakes and other any form of reptiles aren't even allowed to be in Zootopia, because when Gary showed up at that gallery where it is supposed it is, every single one there, including the new mayor, which is a horse, freaked out. Everyone apparently freaked out because they saw a single snake. It's something that must have happened in the distant past, or maybe not that distant, but it must have been something, a huge incident or something big, to let every single reptile be hated, forced to move, or face consequences. You may be thinking, are these allowed? Say, is this if they forced being if they forced to be leaving is like only temporarily for a number of years, or is it forever? Yeah, I don't even know. There's many questions about this. Even that mysterious figure that happens in the first and the second trailer about, say, um, actually may think they might actually be the last human alive, or maybe another reptile or something. But there is no way to say certainty about that. Some people actually believe that is Nick's father, but yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. Even though Nick's dad was supposed to be making an appearance, or at least mentioned in the first one, but that was removed during the production. But still, It's a very much of this second movie that still puzzle me. I mean, considering for one small other fact that in the one scene when we can see Judith and Nick in some civilian clothes while Judith drives a car, Nick is wearing a shirt that says Foxy Dad or Fox Daddy or something. You may be thinking, whoa, 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 back up. Fox Daddy or Foxy Dad on next shirt? Doesn't mean that they are dating or something or they have a fan on the way. Who knows? I mean, we don't even know that. I mean, ever since the first movie was released, there are so many speculations or many fan ships about Nick and Judy being a couple and all that's like, huh, that's not surprising. But there are so many speculations of what exactly what will happen in the sequel. Who is that mysterious figure that had happened in the first trailer? Are they in fact dating? Are they engaged? Are they married? But since there has only been a week since Nick joined the police force, based on what I understand for that, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's not literally impossible for Nick and Judith actually being in some form of relationship or just being partners in at work. Even there are shippings of them out there, people shouldn't jump in the conclusion they are dating. It not necessarily means that Nick and Judy are in fact dating. I mean, if they were, that would have been amazing. But still, again, there are many questions about that one. And another very popular movie franchise that has been around since, I don't know what, 1995. Whew, I remember that time. Toy Story franchise. It is literally confirmed that there's going to be a fifth Toy Story out soon. You may be thinking, what exactly is going to happen in the sequel or the fifth movie? Oh, I got it. Uh, well, I really don't know. I never saw the fourth movie of the Toy Story, and I'm not even going to. Just, I kind of lost interest in watching the Toy Story after the third movie. I mean, they are in fact okay. What is about the fifth movie? What's going to happen? Well, there are some speculations or some early reference that the that kids in this new movie are more focused on iPads, iPhones, and such technology right from their toys. And there is in fact some arts designed for that, like concept art that being released. So who knows? So I think it's possible maybe that is going to happen in the movie, but I don't know. And honestly, there are so many things about it. Oh yeah, your birthday is in 4 days, Cody, and doing a Beyblade tournament for that. That's cool. Yeah, my birthday is come on, open up. It's it's gonna be on the day before Halloween. So on a first day. So I'm actually gonna do a stream on my birthday, and I'm actually not even going to celebrate my birthday with my family on my birthday on first day, since it's literally by end of the week. And even though both my parents are retired, but my brother is working, but and since it's gonna be on like literally on the first day, so we decided to take on Saturday. So and it's not like going to be a big thing about it. I don't even ask for much things every time. All I ask for when I my birthday is clothes, money, maybe a book. That's it. Same thing for my for Christmas. Books, magazines, comics, clothes, money, candy. That's it. I never actually asked for any big stuff when I was getting older. Sure, when I was a kid, I always asked for much of toys and such. There was one particular toy I wanted when I was growing up when I was a kid, an X-Wing. Did I ever get one? Nope, not at all. But I managed actually to buy my own Star Wars ship. Uh, if you remember, say, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, that ship where Anakin is pilot during a battle above Naboo, that Naboo starfighter. I actually bought one of those when I was much younger, like in my teenager. And in fact, I still have it. I still have it. The only thing that's missing from it is one of those torpedoes, those proton torpedoes. But that's it. That's only missing. It still works as well, as long as there's a new battery in it. But on that, still works. So yeah, and many people may actually not heard about this, but Earth actually got a second moon recently. So Earth has two moons, one permanent and one semi-permanent, I guess. This particular small moon, it's not like, oh, is that the one? You won't be able to see it by the naked eye because it's so small. It's like 62 feet long, and it's named 2025 PN7, and it will be in orbit Earth or around Earth until 2083. So for next 60 years, it will be orbiting around Earth. This is actually so called a quasi-moon, and this is not like the first one that actually be orbiting around Earth. Uh, I don't think I did. I mean, if you would send it like today, then I wouldn't have even seen it since I never on Facebook during the daytime at all. Only in the evenings, around this time actually. I never on Facebook during the daytime. It's rare I actually am, but not much. This actually one thing I should mention. Malachite actually found this picture with Rainbow Dash with Lightning McQueen, the car from the movie Cars, as a shipping. I was like, what? Okay, that's not. Well, to be honest, it's not like the first this time it actually happened. It's been since I mean, considering the fact that I made one of Fluttershy with one of the Thomas and Friends train characters. So I was like, okay. So we actually have been talking, me and him, about which characters gonna be could be fit for whom of it's gonna be as if as a if I we talked about this as potential, but there is only one small problem in and it's that if cars would how would they the like say how would McQueen or Matter how would they end up in an Equestria since there are no like any actual magic in the car universe unless they build some sort of portal that could somehow let them to between Equestria and their own world, like a one-way trip. It kind of reminded me of in a comic series of where Transformers were Decepticons and Autobots were by accident transported to Equestria due to the fact that the Chrysalis interfered with the Decepticon space bridge tunnel by using a magical spell. So yeah. So talks about making love stories based on card characters with MLP. It's still in the like early talks. We hadn't even discussed it exactly which character is gonna be, because the thing is, when I wanted to do stories or something like this, I always had to make sure there's a logical reason how some of the characters would end up in Equestria. Like when I made some Sonic characters, I have an easy answer for that. And that is literally a reference from the Sonic X movie series first episode when Sonic and his friends are fighting against Eggman when those chaos control machine that he built malfunction, which teleported all of his friends, including Eggman, to Earth. So I felt like I can do the same thing, but instead from Earth, but in Equestria. So at least that gives an example. Or when Twilight end up in in the city of Gravity Falls, she used a spell teleported there. Even though there's some form of magic in that world, but she was a bit unable to go back home, but vice versa. So in so for the cars and MLP characters, I'm not wasn't sure exactly how to even to explain this to myself. Like how would it even make sense? I mean, pony characters could be transported from Equestria by a magical spell to that world, but try to explain how to get them back if there's like no magic in that card universe. Always been, if there's some sort of could be any form of scientific explanation otherwise. So last stories based on between MLP and Cars characters is still in the developmental talks between me and Malachi. So it's too early. It's way too early to even to say if that's gonna happen anytime soon. It just well, it's still too early for that. Um, I also should mention Robert Freeman asked me to do one of a cozy glow with Flurry Heart as a Halloween story or Night Midnight story. Well, I was actually having um I did find a picture for the story. Well, until I had to delete that one, since I noticed the picture that um, Cozy was she was dressed as a vampire while Flurry was a witch. But I noticed that Cozy she was holding a scepter and in the picture for Night by Night Party. But I didn't notice until after that she was holding there was like two hoops holding the scepter, and she was standing on three legs. Like she was standing on three legs and holding two hoops into the scepter. And that makes five legs rather from four. So yeah, I decided to delete that picture since my viewers may actually thinking, oh, that's creepy, or how does it happen? So I didn't choose that one. So I was looking around on, say, I would even use the, say, Chat GPT and even Gemini AI just to see if those actually could even create any form of picture just in case for if that like a last resort. Well, the fact is, Chat GPT couldn't make any of what I was asking for, even though I did add it in the description of how the characters looked like by their coat color, main color, and eye color, and what kind of costume they were gonna wear. But that failed. Gemini AI, I tried that twice, failed. I searched on Google, even based on the same just general description, failed big time. So I was in a quite in a problem that I was pretty close to like say, hey, I'm gonna make a video to tell Robert that that story that he asked me to do was gonna be canceled, or I had to make a different characters for that story. But but I didn't give up. I still tried. Even I even used Persians, the same AI image creator, just see if there's possibility if that could work. I used the same description again for that one. Well, I mean, it did give me pony characters on Flurry, but Cozy, well, actually, Cozy looked as original, but the fact is, Flurry in those pictures, even I gave exact description, all for main, eye, and fur color to be the same match. It didn't work. Rather from being just being Flurry Heart, it was Twilight standing next to Cozy. I was like, Perseus, you really messed it up. So then I was again about to give up. But then Malachite stepped in and he helped me with that. He was able to, he literally created a picture for an AI generated picture of Cozy with Flurry Heart for the Halloween story. Even though most people don't like, I don't use that, but what else did they have to do? I mean, either that or cancel the story or remake it. So I actually did finish the story, saved it, and Malachite asked me if I could do like a true love of one of his last year's story that he made or that I made for him. Um, Shadow Glow with Chrysalis, and he told me that he preferred this story to be around 20 between 20 29 minutes long. Okay, I was like, okay, that makes it reasonable, but it didn't end up being 20 minutes long, not even 25. It ended up as 35 minutes long. uh, hey, it's better than nothing, though. Oh gosh. So at least I have those stories been taken care of. So at least those Halloween stories being taken care of. But I unfortunately had to delete them from my computer. But I did save copies of them on a flash drive. Turned out the reason I had to remove them it was my OneDrive memory on my computer was well, it said like 82% of memory was being used, so it wasn't enough space left. Makes sense? Makes sense. Which not the first time it happened. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see this. There is no official revival of MLP G5 by Hasbro, but fans are working on a fan-made revival led by creator Hawk Nightwing. As for late 2025 or early 2026, there's an official project aims to provide proper conclusion of G5, which ended without a full storyline conclusion. Meanwhile, Hasbro's My Little Pony brand is rumored to be undergoing a full reinvention set for 2027, which may or may not be direct continuation of G5. Well, Cody, it's if that happened, I have to say I'm sorry, but continue G5 not the same as likely. Even though On has on MLP G5 wiki app, which is little thing is an actual page that it is at the one Mexican company was trying to produce a new series called Ponyverse in a mix between G4 and G5 characters, but which one? Hard to say. But it was cancelled. But then Hasbro decided they actually were had something in mind, but exactly what it were, who knows? Who knows? If it's gonna be G6 or continue G5, I don't know by this point. Even though G5 had continued in comics lately, but I'm really curious about what exactly is going to happen I mean, after all, G5 had been ended like over a year ago. I mean, I know for a fact that you were excited as much as I was when Hasbro did announce those 425 special episodes that's going to be released at four separate times. What the first was in March, the second was supposed to be in around I think 22nd August. The third was supposed to be in sometime in October. The fourth supposed to be in November. But even when the second special was supposed to be in release, that didn't happen. Even though I waited maybe just a day, another perhaps 2 days when the second G5 special is going to be in release, but it was nothing. So after about a week, I actually went to G5 Wikia to see if there's any update of what the reason, but they said unknown reason. And there were actually even 4 pages for each special movie, or I say special episode on that page or that website. But after a while, fourth, third, and the second special mention of those pages on that website were deleted without any explanation. And I was like, okay, why is that happened? There's so many speculations within the fandom, like why did most of the second, third, and the fourth special never happened? It was still a big question about it. I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, I was curious myself to like, why? Why was the second just canceled? I mean, there was already complete, and but then a couple of months after, like I think it was around Christmas season that same year, last year, or it was as early this year when I actually came across that second special on YouTube, but it was not published by Hasbro. Not at all. It was completely different person. It was somehow an individual person actually posted the second 20-minute long special of that on YouTube. I mean, it's curious about how that's even possible. I mean, if that happened, that's supposed to be released in August that last year, but nothing happened. But then, how does it even possible for one YouTuber somehow was able to upload a second special on YouTube, even though it was never even published by Hasbro or any other official from that is associated with Hasbro at all? Like, how is it even possible? But that reminded me of this one, well, 2 separate incidents that literally happened during G4 period happened. I don't remember precise which season they were, but 2 separate seasons of G4 that was literally the first one happened was that the first of that season had already been broadcasted on TV, and the second one was going to be released should well were going to be broadcasted at later date. They were still working on the second half of that season, but somehow someone or some people hacked into Hasbro's servers, downloaded the second half of that season, and uploaded on internet. And do I have and how do I know that? Well, I actually came across those episodes and saw all of them. The second half, even that was long before they were supposed to be uh supposed to be uploaded all. That happened again with Hasbro with Hacked. I thought maybe they at least improve their security or some kind, but nope, that even happened. Oh, but then, but this YouTuber that posted the second special of G5 literally had posted some unfinished episodes of um, G5, including the fourth unfinished version of the fourth special that was supposed to be released around last year. I was like, this makes sense. That makes sense now that some after this person came across after hacked into Hasbro servers to download it themselves, which I don't think is possible. I mean, now these days you can find well things like that online somewhere if you search enough and download it or even be part of a find some place where someone shares it. But I don't even know. It's hard to say from this point. Money issues, the improvements, or the corruption. Well, it might be other money issues that could have been to be the reason to why G5's just simply ended it without explanation. It's possible, considering. But then the second special word fact on words complete. I mean, it was officially complete, but just waited when uploaded, but it never happened. It didn't happen. So I don't know understand why it's suddenly. It's curious though. I mean, the fourth special that was supposed to be was still under the development, being worked on. Yeah, that makes two of us. Nothing makes sense as these days anymore. I mean, normally when something, say, when something was supposed to be in, ends without an explanation. I can give an example. There were this one TV series that's called Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars back from the, I believe, 1980s. Sometimes I think it was under mid late 80s. It was yeah, from the 80s. Sometimes I can say right from there was a difference, some big difference between the comics and the actual show, but it was canceled after just 13 episodes. There are many shows out there that some just was canceled due to some budget cuts or low rating views. I mean, it makes sense that some shows would just ended that were could have been budget cuts that like there was the company didn't have much funds or much budget to continue the series, or there was not much interest to continue the series, or there were not much people to watching it. So I mean, it's under those ways. Or there's just even there's also that the production company that's broadcasting it simply, you know, ended, or some companies that are producing the or producing or maybe showing some those shows really go bankrupt. That's also at least one Sonic show. the adventures with the Sonic the Hedgehog actually ended it uh, without the cliffhanger. As Sonic said that everything has a thing, and at least that show ended it without a cliffhanger. But then Sonic the Hedgehog, that also was in the 90s, where when we can see Mobius being turned into a robot and how they fought against Eggman, Robotnik, and he was eventually driven off. That series ended a cliffhanger, like a big cliffhanger, because at the end of the last episode, you can see two bright red eyes and laughter. And that was not even Robotnik's nephew. It was actually Nagas that had his only appearance in that. And it literally happened that they continued Sonic the Hedgehog series, but as comics in Archie. But then, but then it just happened that the people who made these comics made this huge different change. Like as people may have after may read those comics or at least heard about them, seeing all this as to continue when they introduced Sonic's parents um, and Tails' parents and others at the events happen. Then there was this huge timeline alteration. I mean, like a complete timeline alteration. Like everything that happened from the comics beginning until that point was altered. There was a whole new timeline. Like it was just wow. Just it's just yeah. Scourge Sonic's evil counterpart. Yeah, I mean it's one of the like this. There was one say the one of those series that take place in the comics was take place 25 years after Eggman was defeated, where Sonic and Sally were married as king and queen of Mobius, well, or their kingdom Acorn, and have two kids, a daughter and son, Manic and Sonia. So if the timeline changed, that would even happen. So I'm just curious why though. In fact, Ian Flynn, who was even yeah, I think that that same comic where Sonic was married to Sally, and that Sally was married to Shadow beforehand, and that he was placed in stasis pod, suspended animation underneath the castle, which is or palace, which to me was kind of weird, but okay. But it's just how many things happen. I mean, considering how many of uh, so much of the comics did produce. Like in the original timeline of the Sonic comics, um, we can actually see that many other overlanders, which they are called, um, are returning back home to Earth. Since majority of those overlanders, humans, de-evolved descendants, left the planet in a search for a new home after they lost the war against the Mobians. And one of them happened to be Knively's older brother, Colin. And in fact, that even though that Eggman also had a niece named Hope, he, and along with another one named Nate Morgan, he was a scientist who was, based on the description, an older African American man, was actually one of the very few overlanders that was friendly towards the Mobians. Well, the rest of the Mobians literally hated the Mobians. But yeah, so it it was so many things that like that happened. I mean, considering of how the original timeline just changed, I mean, it's just wow. I can give another example of that's a old cliffhanger, which I really hated, and that is Stargate Universe, a sci-fi show that was on TV until like 2010. It was actually a spin-off from Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, but this one was really different based on the fact of the other two. The first one was about travel within using a Stargate in the Milky Way galaxy, and the second, Atlantis, were in the Pegasus galaxy, which I have to say is an actual galaxy, only about 3 million light years from us. But that's not the point. Stargate Universe, in this, just during the production of the second season, the world is planned on making a 5-year seasons of it. Total of making it 5 seasons, and with the potential perhaps for a movie. But then at the near the end of the second season, all those plans cut. It ended. I mean, it was a big, hugely cliffhanger. The show ended without any actual conclusion what happened. The crew, the people on board Destiny, which is the ship is named in English, since the ship was actually made by an humanoid species called the Ancients. They were actually humanity's first evolution form since, yeah, but um, the crew of Destiny, they place themselves in suspended animation because they wanted to be sleep until they reach the next galaxy. This ship was several billion light years from Earth, and they couldn't even just turn around and fly back. It would take them perhaps millions of years. They had a Stargate on board, but they couldn't even use it to go back to Earth. Reason? Well, as soon as the ship was complete 60 million years ago, according to time on the series, it was possible to dial back to Earth from Destiny. But after millions of years, even when the ship is fully recharged within the star's coronasphere, which is the like literally the atmosphere of a star, even when it's fully recharged, it's not even 100%. It's only 40%. But they left the show ended in a cliffhanger as the crew placed themselves in suspended animation, except for one person. He was actually left only with a week or two. I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks that he had time to repair the last suspended pod. If he hadn't even done that, he would have to end his life. And I mean, literally had to end his life because if he had remained himself alive, that would take the energy, the power from the life support. And that would have made the ship. The ship was supposed to travel from one galaxy to the next for 3 years in a constant, in a like a not in hyperspace travel, but close. But if that happened, that he had to remain alive even after that, rather from 3 years, could have been 1,000 years or more traveling between the galaxies. Rather that the ship would just drop out of this deep space, hyperspace travel and drift between the galaxies. And that can take a thousand or perhaps even more time years between. So he just ended it. They ended that without an explanation to what happened. Did Eli finish repair the last pod, or did he have to end himself in order to save the rest of his crew? But they actually continued that with the comic series, but like six number issues of it, where it explains that he managed to survive and they managed to make a full repair of the ships from damages and all that. As I mean, that is kind of one conclusion. And that another thing is, even though the fact they made two movies of Stargate SG-1, Continuum, and The Ark of Truth, there was at least one more that was in the development. The script was made, but after some time, it was hit on the shelf and indefinite. Stargate Atlantis. They also had a script called Stargate Atlantis Extinction. I don't know if it's like literally from a mention of like any actual extinction or something, but the script was made, but that also ended up on the shelf indefinite. And now there has been a few years since the last one was even made. Apparently, there was um, another Stargate series was in the development during the COVID, but there hasn't even been any further updates about that one. They actually even made an animated version of Stargate series called Stargate Infinity, but that one was canceled after just one season of 26 episodes. It, but that one is non-canon. And there was even one web series called Stargate Origins, also canceled after eventually some episodes, but well, that was just not how it happened. And and since MGM, the production company, was bought up by Amazon, many fans with the Stargate fandom was hoping that maybe a new a new Stargate is going to be produced, since many fans been wondering, is there's going to be any new one, or kind of like a reboot the whole thing? One of the characters, uh, Jack O'Neill, who was played or acting by Richard Dean Anderson, also for mostly famous known for as MacGyver. He was playing as a colonel throughout most of the Stargate SG-1 series until he was promoted to general. But get this, even though he was acting as a colonel in the main of the series, he was actually given a reward, an actual official United States Air Force medallion or a reward, because playing as an actual as real colonel would. And he wasn't even a member of the Air Force. I was like, whoa, that's a that's impressive. That's impressive. Now that's like not every day that an actor or an actress can actually, well, be able to get much of that. Even though the Stargate series it's an American, but it was actually produced in British Columbia. Yeah, that was okay. That's an impressive series. I I have been watch every single Stargate SG-1, Atlantis, Universe, even Stargate Infinity, which makes over, well, if you don't count the animated one, Infinity, which include a total of, I think, over 250 or 60 episodes total, including those two movies they actually made. You may, if you had heard of the first Stargate movie that was made back in 1994, it was supposed to be like a continuation of it, but it's not the same creator to that movie to like Stargate SG-1. Stargate SG-1 lasted from 1997 to 2007 for 10 years. and that was impressive. And Star Atlantis, for about 5 seasons. Star Universe, for about 2 seasons. There was planned of 5 seasons, but after some budget cuts or something happened, I was eventually, well, failed. Typical Stargate Origins, a web series, will have, I think it was just 1 season. I don't know that many episodes. Um, Second, the animated was only about like 26 episodes, but it's not like actual canon. So yeah, that's a huge deal. But that's the same thing as for say Star Trek. That is another thing. I have seen pretty much almost every single of those series out there, like the Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. Um, what else? Wow, I probably have seen almost every single one except the only one I haven't seen much is the Foley is Star Trek: The Lower Decks, the animated they made. Star Trek Prodigy, the CGI version, seen that one, all seasons. Star Trek Picard, the most recent. I actually saw only season 3, season 4. I didn't see season 1 or 2 and 3. It's just nah, not really. That's my people. Wait, so you're skipping the first 3 seasons without knowing exactly what, and you just jump into 2 last ones? That is weird. Well, you know me, weird. There's even another one they also made recently that's still continuing. Strange New Worlds with Commander Pike. That's also supposed to be before Kirk took over as the captain of the ship. Seeing the most of the movies, yep. Though the new ones they actually made like Into Darkness and such, well, I don't think those two are even not good, honestly. Just I don't know, just weird. So but yeah, it's just but there is also many there were some Star Trek series or movies that were the development, but eventually they were either canceled or put on hold. But who knows? Same thing for Star Wars. There are also many movies or shows that were development. Like oh, there's one there's one Star Wars series that many probably seen with one iconic character, Grogu, or known as Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian. The fact is, the fourth season was in fact in the development, but unfortunately, the whole series ended after the first season. I was like, whoa, that's odd. But they are actually working on this. They were actually releasing the first movie, The Mandalorian Grogu, 2026. But there is just they actually released the trailer of that one. But there was just one huge question mark in that one. Um, Cody, have you seen The Mandalorian by any chance? Okay, so you did see the original ship that Mando, what is it called, had that big bulky ship. See, that ship was literally destroyed in at the finale of season 2 of Mandalorian. But that makes no sense. Um, because here's the thing, though. Season 2 finale when the ship was destroyed. But in the first new trailer of the first for Mandalorian series, also have it apparently that he was flying around the ship. But I mean, so the question is this series, this movie, set place before season two finale, or even after that he managed to get a hands of a new one, or no one knows. I mean, it's a big mystery, but they are actually revealing some characters in the Mandalorian movie. Let's say, Seb Delasat from the Star Wars Rebels. He actually made appearance in Star Wars Mandalorian as live action, and he actually is reappearing in the movie. And the one who played Ripley in the original Alien movies, she actually has a role in this movie. But exactly what role, I don't know. But I presume that she has something to do with the New Republic. So, yeah. And Ahsoka. Yeah, I've seen most of them as well. And I mean, the most shocking when I learned that Sabine Wren is force sensitive. Even though the fact that she was trained how to use the dark saber back in Star Wars Rebels, and there was like no hints of that she could have been force sensitive, but then she were force sensitive. You'd be thinking, wait, she's gonna be a Jedi. I mean, after all, Ahsoka is a former Padawan. Well, when you heard me right, former Padawan. She never completed her own training, even though that she did give Sabine some training, but it wasn't until the end of the first season when it was discovered that she actually was able to unlock her force sensitivity. But yeah, there's just a question how does end the scene Ezra still much alive? That was pretty much cool to see because he left or at least vanished at the end of Star Wars Rebels without no one know exactly what happened to him, if he was even still alive or else. But now we know in fact he is alive. What else? There have been talk about the second season of Ahsoka is going to be either being during is in the full production or if it's well, I don't know. But about Grogu or Baby Yoda, many assumed or still assuming that he is the son of Yoda. I mean, he was even nicknamed Baby Yoda. But then the question is, who would be the mother of Grogu? Well, there is only one other member of the same species, which is Yaddle. Yaddle, well, she was actually alive during the time long before, um, when the Clone Wars. I mean, she was pretty much around. Well, she was alive when long before Grogu was taken away. But here's the another thing, though. You may be thinking, okay, so Yaddle and Yoda could be his parents. I mean, Yoda died at age 900, and Yaddle died at 477 or 75 years old. So, hey, she was around the time she's supposed when Grogu was much alive. So, I mean, Yoda was like in his early to mid 800 years old when the Clone Wars happened, and he's been over 2 years, over 2 decades on Dagobah. And since Yaddle died before the end of the Clone Wars, long before, I believe she died around the year 32 BBY, or the time when Anakin was found, I believe. And she was literally killed by Qui Gon. No, not Qui Gon, but Dooku. That's So it's possible that he could have been the son of Yoda and Yarrow, since they are several hundred years old. And but that's just the thing. That was just only speculation, but it's not. I mean, since it's literally part of their own Jedi code that no Jedi aren't allowed to have any form of attachment at all. So how is that even possible for Yoda and Yaddle to be his parents? I mean, no Jedi's weren't even allowed to have any form of romantic attachments. I mean, like emotional attachment to anyone, not even get married, except for one Jedi High Council member, Kieran Mundi, the one who had his uh, long, alligated head, the one who said that, like, what about the attack on the Wookiees? That one. He was actually only one in on the Jedi's was pretty much allowed to have a wife and a number of children, even though the fact the Jedi's weren't even allowed to have otherwise. I mean, Anakin had to get married in secret. So what is the next example? So if Jedi's weren't even allowed to get married and have a family throne, so what was it that makes Kiaramundi an exception? Well, that is due to the fact of his species. His race had a low birth rate, meaning there was not so many births. Not many children of his species was born. So they had a low birth rate for that. So Kiaramundi, he was given a special permission in order to make sure that his own species didn't go extinct. He didn't have just one wife. He had one main wife and I believe three or four honor wives, and total of 6 or 7 children. But he had no emotional attachment to either of his wives, like romantically, or any form of like that to his children, like emotional attachment. But unfortunately, all of his kids were killed, either during the war or after the war when the say Order 66 happened. I don't know, but yeah, there was a lot of that happened. But Yoda and Yaddle to be Grogu's parents, well, I mean, their age fits perfectly by that. But here's the thing: Grogu, he was around the time of, uh, let's see how old he were around the time of the. Excuse me, see how old he were. He was about 22 years old during the Order 66, or when the Great Yellow Purge took place. But hey, he's a baby. How is it possible that he is 22 years old when that happened? Well, I mean, he's the same species, member of the species as Yoda and Yaddle, and they have an average span of 900 years. So apparently, they remain an infant for 50 years. They aren't even fully mature as an adult until they're 100 years old. So Grogu had to wait another 50 years to be fully mature. But here's a much another question. Since he was 22 years old or a baby much in standard by the time of the Great Jedi Purge, what happened to him? Since he had reappeared, he appeared as since he ended up in as Mandalorian, but his only appearance happened when Jinjarin or Mando found him. It was around the 9 ABY, so meaning 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. And that is also during the time of the New Republic, since the Galactic Empire had fallen for a few years now, earlier. So between 19 BBY and 9 ABY. That's 28 years, I think. Come on. Yeah, that's 28 years. So where was he doing? Where was he during those 28 years? There was actually a Jedi Master who managed to take him away from the temple in a Naboo starship. He left with Grogu from Coruscant at the time of the start of Order 66. So what did he do? What did Grogu do between 19 BBY and 9 ABY, which means almost 30 years? And here's the thing though, Ahsoka gave us a little bit of a hint. And when she met up with Mando and Grogu, um, she mentioned that he were present at Temple when the clones attacked to kill the Jedi's. But since then, much of that someone come out from the temple, and much of that his life was in darkness. So exactly what did Grogu do for the next 28 years after the Clone Wars and the Great the Purge and such? No one knows. And what happened to the master that saved him? Did he survive for any long period or was he killed? Because as this Kanan Jarrus stated that in his Rebels, there was 10,000 Jedi's active during the Clone Wars. But then there are a few. Even though there were maybe some survivors, like in Star Wars Expanded Universe or Legends, there were actually 10,000 Jedi's, include masters, Padawans, knights, younglings, and even initiates, those who had even been given a sign to a Padawan yet, who did survive. And since the Great Jedi Purge lasted for 19 or for 18 years, there were even not all Jedi was killed during the Order 66 initiated. There were many survivors scattered around across the galaxy, but eventually some of them were hunted down and either killed or was forced to join the Empire and turn to dark side. Some actually did, or some survivors was taken to some form of gladiator arena and fought against each other to kill each other to as one entertainment for Palpatine. So literally, Palpatine sat on a throne and watching some of the Jedi survivors fighting against each other in order to amuse himself with some entertainment. And after eventually, there was like 100 survivors left, but not all of them. Some of the Jedi's, like say Obi-Wan, we know what happened to him. He was on Tatooine for more than 2 years, for 2 decades. We know that the Yoda, he was on Dagobah for 2 decades. But what about the other Jedi's? Well, there were so many other Jedi's that simply gave up their Jedi ways. Others just left it, abandoned their ways to survive. Say, some actually could have been smugglers, pilots, farmers, business owners, in order a way to get away from being detected. But at least one, actually, there were a few Jedi's that survived Order 66, the Great Jedi Purge, and even survived the whole, well, the Empire, and even there were a few members that was still much alive even at the end, even after 100 years after the Empire had fallen. How does it possible? Well, there is actually a reason for that. since those were not humans, some of them were actually members of a species that had other a lifespan, like Jedi Master Crook. He did appear in the 2003 Clone Wars. His species lived for 249 years, and he was about in his around 188 years old at the end of in the Star Wars comic series Legacy series. There was even another master, Trish Shaw. She was not a human. Her species was known as Nettie, a plant-based organ life form. And in fact, if she would have been born, say, um, if she would have been born, say, um, same year as Anakin, she would have been alive if she wasn't found out as a Jedi for the next several hundred years. She would have been alive, say, since Anakin was born around 41 BBY, around almost the same as Grogu. So if, let's say for a fact, if Trasha was born around the same age as Anakin, and that will make him live, she would have lived, even if she did made as a Jedi and wasn't killed at any point, she would have lived to the year 3959 ABY. Her species has a lifespan of 4,000 years. And here's the thing, they can bury themselves underneath the ground for hundreds of years in hibernation. So she survived the Order 66 and but eventually did die. But there are so many other species in the Star Wars galaxy that's really old. If somebody from are familiar with the Separatist Commander Dirge from the 2003 comic, 2003 Clone Wars, the one the Obi-Wan's fight against. He, it was member of a species that's called Jedi. And Jedi don't have any skeleton. Their entire body is made of muscles. No skeleton whatsoever in their body. And his species have a lifespan between 4 to 7,000 years. That's a huge lifespan. And oh, Cody, have you seen Empire Strikes Back when say when Han Solo and they are in this big like a slug or worm in an asteroid? Because that worm, or which is also called which is known as space slug, in as the newest car store, the Disney canon sources, that particular one is named Big One. And by the time of 3 ABY, that one is 1 billion years old. No joke. According to Wikipedia, on the canon sources version, that space slug is 1 billion years old. And that is like, whoa. That is the oldest known organism that actually exists within the Star Wars universe. But I like, damn, that's an old one. That'd be that mean it had to be in a huge birthday cake with so many candles. I mean, like, whoop, whoa, yeah, that's yeah, but in Disney expanded universe version of that same space-like character, it's not a billion years old, not at all. It's just really old, otherwise. Well, I'll see you next time, Cody. See ya. Well, I mean, considering how many Star Wars characters out there, and like Jabba, when he died, he was about 600 years old, and the Hutts, they do live a really long time. If he had wasn't killed, he would have lived for a few more hundred years. They have a lifespan of 1,000 years, give or take. The Wookiees, now they have a long lifespan, about 400 years. And in expanded universe of say Wookiees, uh, Chewie or Chewbacca, unfortunately he passed away around age 225 during a galactic war. But in the new version of him with Disney canon, he is pretty much still alive and he is 235 years old. So, yeah, that's a difference. And about his family, he has in both versions. But in the old version, he has a sister and a nephew. His nephew is named Lobaka, and he is actually even a Jedi Knight. That's quite surprising, though. But apparently, force sensitive Wookiees are rare, like once a century or so. I think being a Wookiee that's force sensitive can be a Jedi for 400 years if you want it. Yeah, so that's huge deal. I think I probably should end the stream here. It's nearly 2 hours, and yeah, so that's been a long time. So until then, people, until next time would be hopefully on Friday. Yeah, on Friday. So until then, this is Fish Double signing off. Bye.